the bombing of Fordo won't solve the problem that the conflict has created. The Islamic Republic now will lessen its cooperation with the IAEA. It may even withdraw from the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and it will look to race towards getting a nuclear weapon, because the things that built Iran's desire to get a nuclear weapon was its threat perception in the region. And obviously, if you've just spent the last 2 weeks getting bombed, your threat perception hasn't gone down. It's definitely gone up.
Despite Israel's and the United States' attacks on Iran's nuclear and military sites, Iran will likely be able to begin producing uranium in a matter of months, according to the head of the International Atomic Energy Agency, the UN's nuclear watchdog. A spokesperson for Israel's foreign ministry said that the US strikes on 3 Iranian nuclear facilities last Saturday was not only meant to destroy the country's nuclear capabilities, but their ballistic missile threat as well. Israeli officials have warned that Iran has been building the biggest ballistic missile arsenal on the planet. In their stockpile, it also contained a one-ton warheads that have the capacity to strike London, they say. Joining us now is Charlie Gammell, historian and who was at the Iran desk at the Foreign Office. Charlie, good afternoon.
Hi, Alexis.
Thanks for joining us. Can we just deal with that ballistic missile threat? Talk to us about what we know so far. What have the Iranians been working on?
So the Iranians have got a very advanced ballistic missile program, which includes ICBMs, so intercontinental ballistic missiles, and other more short-range missiles. And this is why, if you look at the Israeli operation, they focused on taking out Iran's missile launches, because they were so concerned about just the sheer numbers of missiles that the Iranians had. So they thought, if we take out their launches, they won't be able to effectively deploy this arsenal. And Iran has a space program, and the technology, the crossover between having a space program, something which can go up in space and come back down again, and having an intercontinental ballistic missile, it's often a cover for doing ICBM research. So this has been known for a long time. Iran has been sort of leading the way in trying to get missiles that can go from Iran to short range to medium range, and then to hit potentially the UK and beyond. So this has been something that has been a factor of Iran's weaponization and military development program for many years.
And what do we know of the damage caused to that particular program?
Yeah, it's unclear yet what the damage is to that program. I mean, obviously, we've seen the damage to Fordo and Natanz and Esfahan. We don't know to what extent this has set back the program, but Israel was striking research facilities that Iran is using to create these different types of missiles. So there has been some damage to their ballistic missile program, but the exact extent we don't know. We know in the short term, tactically, a lot of their missile launches were hit by the Israelis. I think an estimate was up to 50%. So it has taken a big damage, but whether it's knocked it back long term or not, we don't know.
What do you make of the IAEA's comments, the UN's nuclear watchdog, that Iran will be able to begin producing uranium in a matter of months? The word that was used the most often, I would say, from the Trump administration in regards to last week's bombings was obliterated the nuclear program. Is that still the case?
I think it's very clear that the US didn't destroy completely Iran's ability to enrich uranium, and that's pretty clear. There's the IAEA themselves have said that there was 400 kilograms of enriched uranium that got out before the bombings happened, and that would have been the first thing that the Islamic Republic would have been doing. How do we remove and safeguard some of the stockpiles we have so they don't get destroyed? Something I wrote just after the Americans bombed Fordo was to say that the bombing of Fordo won't solve the problem that the conflict has created. The Islamic Republic now will lessen its cooperation with the IAEA. It may even withdraw from the Non-Proliferation Treaty, and it will look to race towards getting a nuclear weapon, because the things that built Iran's desire to get a nuclear weapon was its threat perception in the region. And obviously, if you've just spent the last 2 weeks getting bombed, your threat perception hasn't gone down. It's definitely gone up. So that the drivers that make the Islamic Republic want to possess a nuclear weapon are still there. They look at North Korea. North Korea is not being bombed because it has that sort of weapons capability. So absolutely, it's in the Islamic Republic's interest now to race towards getting a bomb. I think the danger is, at the moment, we have We have a solution that the bombing of Fordo hasn't solved the problem that the conflict created, and we don't know where it's going to go. I think a lot of people will want to go towards a diplomatic solution, but I'm not sure that that will solve the problems that we have right now.
The diplomatic solution that was there before, the JCPOA, the Iran nuclear deal that was put in place by President Obama, was that working? I mean, it wasn't perfect, but had it slowed down the nuclear development in Iran?
Yeah, I mean, it's clear that Iran was compliant under the terms of the JCPOA. That's absolutely clear. I think the thing that concerned the Trump administration was that the money that Iran was getting and the money we've seen it get since being able to sell energy to China increases the state's ability to be a destabilizing force in the region. So even though Iran was on the surface compliant with the JCPOA obligations, the increased money it had meant that it could be a destabilizing actor in the region. So the narrowness of the JCPOA was something that made it vulnerable to lots of things. It meant that OFAC sanctions related to Iran's activity on other areas, not just the nuclear issue, they were never going to be taken off. So Iran could never benefit fully from sanctions relief because some of those sanctions relief were related to things that fell outside of the scope of the JSPOA. Now, the worrying thing now is that the Trump administration will look to sort of reheat the JCPOA in a completely different world. And I suppose the concern is that a diplomatic solution to today's problem feels very much out of reach.
So, Charlie, would you say that last weekend's event, if anything, have accelerated Iran's research and development into a nuclear weapon?
So I think what we can say is that Iran now sees itself even more threatened in the region than it was before last week's events. Its ability to protect itself from Israeli bombing is pretty low. Its confidence that its intelligence and military apparatus aren't totally penetrated by Mossad again is low. Therefore, it is in a state where it feels like it needs something. It needs the ultimate protection against the Israelis trying to overthrow it. And the Iranian perception of the operation that Israel and America undertook, particularly Israel, was that they are trying to do regime change here. Mm-hmm. So they will be looking to protect themselves, and no better way to protect yourself than having a nuclear weapon. The concern is that they have 1 to 2 years in which to get to that breakout bit in terms of the weaponization. They may be 6 months to make a dirty bomb, but also Israel is looking at that clock and saying, well, how long do we have to topple the Islamic Republic or to continue to do the things that we want to do to get rid of the Islamic Republic?
And Charlie, just very briefly, the chances of this regime change, what do you put them at?
Yeah, so right now, Netanyahu and Reza Pahlavi asking Iranians to come out onto the streets, that's just not going to happen because at the moment the Islamic Republic is cracking down on anything that even looks like dissent. The regime is definitely weakened. There are signs of elite fracture. The economy has taken a massive hit, not just by this, but what's happened previously. And 80% of Iranians think the regime is something that they don't want to see any more of. So all the conditions are there for a potential regime change, but there are some things that are lacking. There's no coherent there's no counter-regime voice. There's no Khomeini figure who can lead the revolution. So I think there's a lot there that would suggest that the regime could fall, but we're still a long way from that. And I think, as with these things, they happen very quickly, and then we look back and we say, why didn't we see that coming? But I think the regime is weakened by what's happened, undoubtedly.